It's a pleasure to introduce, and that one, thank you. From Tesla Motors Scandinavian Director, Peter Bardenfleth Hansen.
Thank you, Christian. Well, you basically said it all, so I think I can go home now. So that was really, really cool. Thank you very much for letting me come and speak to you today. I guess most of you in here have heard of us. We are a small car company, and one of the absolute newest car companies on the planet today. The story is quite an interesting one, particularly when you sort of hear all the various talks that we've had throughout today. But it basically started with Elon, our founder and CEO, and he had this idea back in the 80s when he was a teenager that that we had to make a change in regards to the way that we were treating the planet. He had this idea that that we were burning up all our resources, and we had to make a change in order for us to become sustainable. Now, he wasn't that old at that time, so he thought, well, you know, how are we going to do this? So he thought, well, the best thing to do is actually to use the sun. And the sun is basically the most sustainable form of energy that we have in our solar system. And the best thing we could do there would be to harness that energy in one way or another. And what would we use that for? Well, he looked at everything that was possible at the time, and he decided that mobility was definitely an area to go into. That, and also the idea of putting people into space. But that's a second and different story altogether. In the 90s, he created another company that you probably have heard of called PayPal, which he then sold off in the early 2000s and invested the money in two companies, Tesla being one of them, and the other one being SpaceX, which is the world's largest private rocket company. Again, different story. Now, in 2003, we founded this small car company, and the idea was to change the way that we think about mobility, and basically, as he wrote up there, expedite the move from hydrocarbon burning towards a more sustainable solar electric economy. And there had been several attempts, even in Norway with Think, other places in the world. A lot of noble attempts had been made. A lot of money had been pumped into it, but not the amount of cash that would be needed to really make a statement. So every single one of these companies who tried, although the ideas were noble, they failed miserably. And in fact, they probably did more harm than good, seen through the electrical car eyes, simply because it reinforced the idea that electrical mobility was not anything that could be taken seriously. So we thought, well, what can we do? What can we do to make people stop up and think that this could be a serious contender and a serious alternative to the existing cars that we have? Well, we needed to make something that was somewhat more sexy than what we had today. So we thought, well, what do we do? Well, we got to make a sports car. Sports cars are always sexy, but sports cars are very limited in its purpose. and it's also something that generally only appeals to a very small segment of the population. Nonetheless, that's probably the way to go, to kick the doors open and make a statement out and around. So we produced the Roadster in combination with an existing car manufacturer back in 2006. That was with Lotus. And the Roadster was a huge success. We only decided that we were going to make 2,500 units of this car even before we started. It was a limited number of cars, a limited time frame. We only had the contract with Lotus until 2011, by which time we had to have secured another model and another way of moving forward. So we were sort of pushing ourselves to an edge, not really knowing if we had anything ready by the time we got there. But what we did do, we produced a car that simply did exactly what we thought. It was going to change everybody's idea of what an electrical car was. So here's this beautiful little car that could drive 340 kilometers on a charge, and it could move in exceedingly light speed of 0 to 103.7 seconds and handled like basically any other sports car out there. Now, this car really did make headlines, and it was also the car where I started. When I started in Tesla, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, this was the car we just started delivering. I came to Norway in 2010, and we had one of these with us, and people would you know, they would stop in the street and they would be asking us, what is this? I think we had about 7 cars back then in Norway. Things have changed quite a bit since then. After that, what was the second stage of this rocket? Well, it was to build a premium sedan. It was to build a car that could really reach out. Maybe not to the masses, but certainly to a much wider audience than what we did with the Roadster. But again, we had to push the limits of what you could do as a car manufacturer, and also, in particular, as the new boy in the classroom, and moreover, being an electric car. All eyes were on us, and there was a lot of people out there, and there still are, who would like to see us fail. So we had to get it right. Our engineers worked day and night to come up with this car. And well, I guess most of you have been out for a drive today, and you can certainly see the result of this. It has won a number of awards, not to mention the Norwegian Car of the Year 2013. Also, in Norway, it's been the best sold car for 2 months in 2013, September and in December, but I'll get back to that in a moment. So what could we do to again redefine car manufacturing? Well, we had to look at the way that we were building cars. So the first car you saw, the Roadster, we built it in cooperation with an existing car manufacturer. So we sort of approached it with, let's say, through old-fashioned ways. And we needed to redefine not only the way and the energy that we used to drive the car forward, but also the way that we built it. So basically what we did was we decided to take the whole battery and make it part of the frame of the car. So instead of thinking backwards where you said, okay, we take a combustion engine car and take out the petrol, the engine, the petrol bay, and add in some batteries, we decided to, okay, let's just start from the ground up. Let's start with the fact that we don't have a combustion engine, we don't have a petrol tank, or a gear exchange, or anything that has to do with the old way of thinking. Let's start from scratch. So basically, this is what we did. So we added it all together. Whoops. And this combined made a very, very strong unit of the car. So it's actually more solid than even the best of Ferraris or anything else that you have out there that's generally regarded as very strong and solid cars that have a chassis that doesn't torque or twist in turns. This actually has one of the stiffest chassis that are around because the battery is part of the main build component. Moreover, the main issues with electrical vehicles is the weight. Now we decided, well, we couldn't have the weight floating around up or down or around. It had to be as low as possible. So by putting the battery right at the bottom, we also put the center of gravity really, really low, adding to the incredible handling that this car has. Now, we talked, I heard a bit earlier about the way that a lot of people talk but not necessarily do so much. One of the things that really makes us step out comparatively to a lot of other companies is our flexibility and the speed at which we evolve and the speed at which we are putting out new products. Generally, when a car manufacturer makes a drawing, like the ones we saw earlier, to the point where it's actually on the street, the average time is about 7 years. We did that in about 3 years with the Model S. And one of the reasons is that we're just extremely fast. We have a very dynamic team that where all ideas are given free space and not laughed at. Everything's taken seriously. I mean, we have a CEO who came up with the Hyperloop. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's quite an incredible tunnel that goes from San Francisco to LA, if it's ever built, and sending people through in small pods at twice or around the speed of sound. We also have a CEO who likes to think that in the next 10 years we're going to start sending rockets to Mars, and is building a rocket company to prove it. So anything can be thought of in this company. So, and we often get mails from Elon and others in the corporation just asking for everybody to come with ideas and just send them forward. Anybody has an idea, send it forward, because that's the way that we innovate and we are flexible in the way that we move forward. So, in fact, last year at this point, we hadn't delivered any Model S's in Europe yet. The first Model S's came to Europe in August 2013. But we were discussing at the time what would be the best way to bring these cars to Europe. There were a lot of issues. How to bring them over, because we were building them in California, in Fremont, at our factory. Should we bring them over as they are, on a roll-on, roll-off basis, or should we bring them over in pieces, put them together? What kind of duty should we be paying on these things? And there were a lot of things that we thought of. And then we came to the conclusion that probably the best thing we could do was actually to build a European assembly plant. And this was in February, March last year. Yet we were completely committed to doing the first deliveries in August. So basically, in a period of about 3 months, we built a factory in Holland. And this is a great example of how quickly we move. So we bought this and we built it. And on the 1st of August, the first cars rolled out of there. And currently, we have delivered over 6,000 cars out of that unit. So that's doing extremely well. Whether or not that's the way we're going to continue, time will tell. but that's basically what we're doing right now. To give you an example of what we're doing in Norway, well, we opened the first store in Oslo in April 2012, and we had 2 employees at that time. I was one of them, and now I think there's about 100 of us, and we have 5 stores. We're opening 2 more in the next 1 month. We've just opened here in Stavanger. We actually did that in December, but we had our official opening last week. And we will be opening in Kristiansand, in Røyke, Moss, and further north as well. Just show you up here. So this gives you a bit of an example. Basically, in the next 12 months from today, we'll be opening another 50 service points across Europe. One of the things that's really important for Tesla is safety. And again, it's quite interesting to note when speaking to people about safety, and they look at in the front of the car and there's no engine in the back. And there's this misconception that, well, you know, if there's no big engine out front, so I'm not really protected if I should have an accident. Well, actually, it's the other way around. The fact that you have a half a ton or 300 kilos of metal out front when you have a crash is a lot more detrimental than not having it. In fact, the way that you can build this car is that you can make much better crumble zones, making this car much safer than basically anything ever built. So we have currently earned the best ratings for safety ever tested in the US. We're still waiting to get the Euro NCAP testings. They should be coming sometime this spring, but we expect that they will match the ones that we have in the US. Another thing that's been really important for us is to make a car that works in all weather types. And particularly in a place like Norway, that's been a very important factor. The Roadster that you saw earlier was our first sort of trial to find out how that actually worked. So the cars that we had up here, we've had them for, well, the first ones came in the late 2009. So we've had them almost 5 years on the roads here. So we have a lot of data that shows us how our cars and primarily how our battery cells live and work under freezing temperatures. In fact, an example we often use is that one of our absolute best clients and customers is a chap who lives in Narvik, which is about 250-60 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. He was so happy with the Roadster that he had to buy one more for his wife, and then he bought one more for his clinic, and then one more for his children. And in the end, he had 6 Roadsters driving around in the Arctic. And he would often call this. He got his first one in 2010. So he would call us, and he'd go, "Hey, I'm on my way up to the border to Sweden. It's minus 38 degrees." And this car is just driving fantastically, he said. And that's the little sports car we were on about. So we would often use data from his cars to build the car that we have here. Now, of course, there are a lot of teething problems even with bigger cars, but we have come a real long way in regards to being able to build a car that can weather the types of weather that we have around the globe. So another thing that we found was extremely important, and also the key to making Tesla and all other electrical cars a success, is the ability to charge. So I often joke about that this car can charge on everything and anything, right down to a Duracell battery. It's almost true, because the lithium-ion batteries we have in there are made of cells that are about the same size of a Duracell battery. It has about 9,000 lithium-ion cells, and the battery is made in cooperation with Panasonic, which is one of the stakeholders in Tesla. It is obviously one of the absolute main components in the car, because without it, we wouldn't be able to drive anywhere. And also the fact that we have to be able to charge at a certain speed in order for this to become a usable vehicle for everyday purposes. Now, the fact that it has a up to 500-kilometer range, of course, does give it a long leeway. But if it would take you 2 weeks to charge it up, then maybe that wouldn't be that interesting. Currently, we have ability to charge on home charging units as quickly as approximately 4 hours, the quickest on what you could do at home. And that would be a 3-phase charging. But if you just use your usual normal plug, which you can use, just any plug, out of your computer, whichever, you are probably looking at somewhere between 24 and 30 hours. But again, you'll do 500 kilometers if you drive carefully. But again, we knew and know that that's not going to be what will give us the key to the ultimate success for vehicles driving around in Norway, Europe, or the whole world for that matter. So we had to resolve this, and the way we did this and are doing is by building what we call superchargers. Now, the way that the Tesla works is with a electrical motor that's an AC brushless engine, and basically the batteries are DC. So you have a converter, and when you have the power that comes out of your plug is also AC. So you convert what you put into the battery, which you then convert again to put into the motor. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. However, you can circumnavigate the first bit by putting DC directly into the battery. Now that greatly fastens up the ability to charge the battery. As we write up there, you can do it about 20 times quicker than anything else. So you can charge the 500 kilometers with our supercharge system in about 30 minutes. Now that's starting to become very, very interesting, because that means that you can drive 500 kilometers, stop for 30 minutes, have a sandwich, cup of coffee, and you're ready to do another 500 kilometers. A lot of people didn't quite believe this, but we have now implemented 6 of these across Norway. So we've connected Trondheim to Oslo, Stavanger to Oslo, and Bergen to Oslo. And our customers can drive from and across using these systems. Charge up. You would do it. There's about 200 or 200 kilometers between these charging stations. So you can just have to stop for about 20 minutes, and your car is ready to go again. What's even more exciting is that we are looking at this as an investment. So we don't want, nor do we expect our customers to be paying for this. So we're radically changing the way that you're thinking about mobility. We're making it free to travel across country and cross continents. So here are the 6 stations that we have currently. By the end of this year, we will be connecting even more of the Norwegian cities. In fact, we will be going all the way up north to Tromsø as well. We will, of course, be connecting Norway to the rest of Europe. Now, this is what it looks like right now. So we've connected Holland to Switzerland. You can drive all the way down. A lot of Dutch people are happy. They can go skiing in their Model S. And basically, this is what it's going to be looking like by this summer. And by the end of 2014, so in 11 months, this is basically what our supercharged network will look like in Europe. This means that you can drive from Tromsø to Lisbon without paying for anything other than the road tolls and the coffee and sandwiches that you need to sustain your life on the way down. But your charge or your petrol, whatever you want to call it, you don't have to pay for. Tesla does that. I think that basically sets a completely new bar. It changes the rules of the games completely. I would say that our experiences here in Norway have definitely helped us move a long way towards making this a possibility. We need examples like Norway to be implemented in the rest of Europe for EVs really to become successful. The way that the Norwegian politicians have helped electrical vehicles has been incredible. By giving the incentives that you have, it has made the life with electrical cars a lot easier, and thereby also making them a lot more easy to sell, of course, but also opening up the eyes of the public of which way to go when we're talking about moving or transitioning from the old combustion engines over to something that's a lot more sustainable. It's not like that in every other country. So we greatly appreciate the way that things have been moving in Norway. Although at one point or another it'll probably be taken away, but that will be okay, because by that time we would have made what we would call the critical mass, and we would have become such a household name, both in regards to Tesla, but all the other producers of electrical cars will also have reached the critical mass in regards to new production, but also in regards to second-hand cars, to sustain the infrastructure and basically the market as such. We are seeing movements not only in the western part of Europe, but of course also in the Baltics, Finland, Poland, all the way to Russia. We'll be opening in Turkey, even Greece. So there's a lot of potential here. I would say Norway are the ones that are really showing the way. And from Tesla's point of view, I'd like to thank the ones that, I don't know, I guess the most of you in here are from Norway. So, you know, you can pat yourself on the back. You're doing extremely well. So on that note, thank you very much.